everyone. Welcome to the third Ask Matt Live. If the more astute of you might notice that this is actually the fifth time I've done questions and answers, but it is the third time that I'm doing it on a consistent basis. So thank you all for being here. If you're watching over on YouTube, there's a link in the description to the Google Plus page where you can go over there, and that's where you can actually ask the questions. I'm watching that page because I can actually see the questions as they come in, and people can vote them up and down. I guess just up. I don't think they're down. You can vote them up so that the more wanted questions can get asked first. So to get started here, I am actually a little bit behind the scenes thing here. Normally during the day, I have my son with me, and I was planning on having my son with me today, but some interesting turn of events in my life, or my wife's life, I guess. So originally, there's going to be a normal day. I was going to have my son here, probably hanging out behind me. And then my wife decided that she would take the day off of work today, before Thanksgiving, just to have some more time off. And then she got called for jury duty. So she was at jury duty, but then she actually got let go early. So she's home watching my son so I can do this without any interruptions. I'm hoping to do this for about 45 minutes. That seems to be a good amount of time. And yeah, let's get into it. I have a couple of prepared questions or pre-submitted questions from a few people that I'm going to jump into right away as I wait for some questions to come in through the live stream here. I got my water, stay hydrated. Let me see here. Okay, so the first question, I get this one a lot, so I thought I'd answer this one first. This came from an email from Mike regards to the chainsaw noise with my chainsaw mill in my backyard. It says, how have I managed to keep everyone in the neighborhood happy? It's a very good question. And I think it's kind of deceiving based on the videos, because it seems like I'm out there doing that all the time. But in reality, the number of times I've used my chainsaw mill out there for any extended period of time is maybe 6 times a year. So it's not like I'm doing it a whole lot. And when I do it, I'm maybe working with it maybe 20 minutes at a time or a day. So it's really not a whole lot of noise in the grand scheme of things. But interestingly enough, the neighbors don't really mind that much because they're more interested in what I'm doing than the fact that I'm making noise doing it. So if the chainsaw's running, there's a high likelihood that someone's going to come walking by just to check out what I'm cutting. So there's that. And then the other thing is that winter's coming. I have the biggest snowblower in the neighborhood, and I do go around and take care of everybody's driveways as well. So, they look out for each other, and people are less likely to complain, I guess, about what you're doing and be more involved with, be more interested in what you're doing. I suppose that's a good way to put it. All right, I got one more here, and then I'm going to jump into the questions here. Thank you, everyone, for putting your questions in. Keep adding those in there. I really do appreciate everybody's questions. All right, this question is from Aaron. He left us as a comment on the shop update this week. Besides species, what are you looking for when you decide which logs to salvage off Craigslist? When you're not felling the tree yourself, how do you decide which logs are worth the time and effort to mill? That's a good question. And honestly, most of the time, if I'm doing it on Craigslist, it's going to be if it's a species that I really want in my collection or to use, then it's going to be a higher priority. But really, for me, the biggest thing about salvaging logs is it worth my time in the log size? So if the log is a really big log, that's something that I'm going to go for no matter what it is, for the most part, unless it's something that I can't really do anything with, maybe like cottonwood or something. But pretty much anything that's giant, especially now that I have the trailer, I'm going to want to grab that, because those bigger trees, especially since the stuff that I salvage out of Craigslist, I just cut here with my chainsaw mill, and the chainsaw mill isn't really efficient. So the benefit I have there is that mill has a greater cut capacity than most sawmills do. So if I have it with a large log, then it makes a little more sense than doing a bunch of small logs with the chainsaw mill. But that's my thought on that, I guess. All right. Question from Sean Stone. What's up, Sean? When slabbing a tree without knowing what you're going to be using it for, what's the good thickness for general use? Again, with the chainsaw mill, it's really slow. So I'm not going to cut boards with a chainsaw mill. It's just too slow and not efficient at all. So the thinnest that I really ever cut with the chainsaw mill is 8/4. And that kind of gives you a good amount of flexibility if you want to do like a tabletop or legs, or if you want to do thinner, I can always resaw it thinner later. It's actually probably faster to resaw it on the bandsaw than it is to cut it at the chainsaw mill, and it has, you know, less waste. So with the chainsaw mill, I usually just do that at 8, 9, 10/4, 12/4, 16/4 for leg stock, stuff like that. Again, just you don't know what you're going to do with it, so I keep it as thick as possible. It takes longer to dry, but you can always cut it thinner later. Sean, what's up, Sean? For your classes, are you filming them all at once and then releasing them as a download, or be more like the Woodwhisperer Guild format? The initial class, or the initial classes, the farmhouse table and the sofa table, I'm going to try and do them all at once and release them as a whole set, instead of doing the video, because I'm not really sure how long it's going to take me to edit them, and I don't know if I can commit to an actual schedule to getting every single section out. So I'm going to try and get the whole entire class edited, so when you buy the class, you have the whole thing right then and there, at least initially, until I get things set up. And that'll also buy me some time to get the website set up for it as well. People texting me. My family's coming for Thanksgiving, and they're on their way. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone in the States. Mark says, when trolling, do you prefer... God love trolls. Hey, Tommy, how's it going? I think my mouse stopped working. Oh, there it goes. All right. I'm using a wipe-on poly for the first time. I'm on the 3rd coat, and I can still see the white marks from the 1st coat. Is it salvageable, or should I start over? From the 1st coat, wow. You should be able to kind of fill them in with the subsequent coats. So before you try and start over, I'll try and give it a pretty heavy sanding to kind of get the surface level again, and then kind of go from there. Because as you're applying those layers of poly, you know, some's getting into the valleys, and that's going to try and fill up the valleys a little bit, so that, and you're going to put some on the peaks as well. So if you can level the whole surface again with a pretty significant sanding, that should be a decent way to salvage what you have, instead of trying to go all the way back to the beginning. At least that should be, yeah, in theory. Let me know how it works if you give that a try, but it should be fine. It'll save you a little time and going all the way back to the beginning. Big project for 2016. Yeah, I got a couple. Besides, I'm guessing the farmhouse table is going to take me into 2016 at this point. That's going to be the biggest project for sure, at least by size, I'm sure. And then after that, I want to build a highboy, and that should be interesting. I've been wanting to do that for a long time. I was wanting to build a highboy since before I built the secretary. Highboy is easier than a secretary. And for whatever reason, I decided to go to the more difficult project as well. So I don't know. So at least those two, the farmhouse table and the highboy, for sure will be happening in the next year. And possibly a slab top dining table as well. Yeah. My wife wants one of those as well, and she's been wanting those for a long time. So I might give her one of those this year, or this coming year. Boots, do I own any? I don't own any boots. Nope. Someday maybe, if I find some that actually are comfortable. I've got weird feet. How did you fund your tools? Does your online sales put enough income to live and work? Okay, so pretty much everything you see behind me was purchased when I was traditionally employed. I have not really, since I've gone full-time doing the videos, I have not spent much money on the shop. It's just because it's a lower income at this point, and it doesn't really afford me the ability to just go spend a bunch of money on tools. The online sales, the video revenue, or the ad revenue from the videos, everything that comes along with that, all the affiliate links and all that stuff, that affords me enough to I guess, live on top of the income my wife has. So we couldn't live on just her income, but with the little bit that I'm getting right now from the channel, plus her income, it's allowing us to live that way. And I get to stay at home during the day with my son and do all this at night and have fun doing this and just love what I'm doing. So I'm happy. My mouse is broken. Click. Oh, yeah, that worked. Hey, all right. Sticky button, I guess. All right. Hi, Matt. Let us know what you thought of the water-based finish you used on one of your recent projects. I know you mentioned it was your first time. I never had any good results with water-based finishes, mainly due to the fast dry time and quality. Okay, so the water-based finish I used was on this desktop that I'm sitting at, this thing, this slab. I did a video about that experience, and I think it came down to 2 issues I had with that finish, and a lot of people pointed out to me. That's the kind of nice thing about doing videos like that, is you don't really know until someone points stuff out to you. So there were 2 issues. The foam brush I was using was crap, and I was working it too much, which is weird because I'm so used to oil finishes where you can work it for minutes and minutes to get it nice and even, and then it'll flow out. The problem with the water-based finishes that I'm not used to is that they dry so quickly and they're so thick, they don't flow out they flow out quickly or whatever. So it's a totally different experience. So if you get the application method well figured out, it works just fine. And as far as quality goes, I think it's a really nice finish. It feels really good. It feels really hard. It's really clear. At least the finish I used on here was really clear. It didn't distort the colors at all. So as a quality, I think it's really nice. It's just harder to apply, honestly, which is funny because I think it's supposed to be easier to apply, but I find it to be way more difficult to apply than in a wiping varnish. But yeah, I don't know. I use it as in an aerosol can on the crib, and that one was a Minwax polyacrylic, I think, and that stuff yellowed. I was kind of upset about that because the stuff I use on here is the general finish is high performance, and that it stayed really clear. But the stuff I use on the crib, it turned the maple really yellow, and I tried it on a test piece and it looked fine, but it ended up really yellowing. That was kind of disappointing. House is broken again. There we go. All right, question from Sean. Oh, it just jumped around. Right, there it is. These questions jump. All right, Sean asks, I'm in the process of milling a big log, and I was wondering how tight you keep the chain tension when you're chainsaw milling. I keep it at, like the normal tension that I would use if I was running around with the chainsaw, or maybe just a hair tighter, because I find that over time, all the vibration and all the running, the chain will actually lose a little bit of tension. Probably not the chain itself, but what's probably happening is the clamps, or the bar clamps, or the nuts that hold the bar side plate on there that clamps the bar in place, is probably like kind of loosening a little bit, and these causing the bar to creep in towards the body, loosening the tension a little bit. So I just run it maybe a little bit tight in the beginning, and it'll kind of figure itself out. But yeah, I wouldn't go too crazy with the tension. Everyone's texting me. Oh, Tom. What's up, Tom? What's the good way to sign your projects? Do you burn or what? I sign them. I literally take a pen and I sign all my projects. I like that a lot because it's, you can sign your projects however you want. But for me, I like that it's more personal, and it's more like I'm signing a piece of art, I guess. Every single one of my signatures is going to be slightly different. My penmanship is slightly different every time I write it. And I don't know. Yeah, it's really consistent. The thing that I don't really like about the branding irons is that it's harder to get a really consistent image from those. Sometimes, it might burn too much or too little, and then the shading might be different from one side to the other if you have it angled at all. So I just really enjoy signing. It's my favorite part of the whole process, is actually signing my piece of work. And I do that with a gel pen so that it actually puts a lot of ink on the surface, and that ink will absorb pretty deeply into the wood. so that it should last for a really long time, probably as long as a branding iron would. All right, Thomas asks, what's a good hand plane to buy as your first? Most of the ones I've seen on Amazon don't have the best reviews. Do I have to spend over $100 to get something decent? If you want to buy something new, yeah, you probably do. If you want to buy something less than $100, you're probably going to have to go the route of a restored plane. Like most of mine are, yeah. All of my bench planes are all restored. I guess they're technically antiques, depending on how old you consider an antique. I think I paid 50 or 60 bucks for this number 4, and this came pre-restored from eBay. And the seller I bought this from, he restored a lot of planes, and he had really good reviews about the planes he restored. So I paid a little bit of extra money compared to buying one of these things all rusted up for like 15 bucks and restoring it myself. And I got a plane that was, you know, perfectly restored, ready to work from the day I got it. The other thing, excuse me, the other thing I did with this plane, because I used it the most, is I added a upgraded blade and chip breaker. This is a Veritas, and it's matching chip breaker, and that alone really, I at least for me, I felt like it really upgraded and improved the way the plane actually functioned just by adding this. But I mean, this costs as much as this did, so I guess take that for what it's worth. But if you want to spend as little money as possible, I think going the antique restored plane route is going to be the best way to go. And when you buy an antique plane, don't buy an antique plane that was a cheap plane back then. Buy an antique plane that was a really good plane back then. So if you can think about it this way, if you know Lee Nielsen and I don't know what's a cheap plane like Buck Brothers or whatever is making planes back 100 years ago, would you buy an old Buck Brothers or would you buy an old Lee Nielsen if they're both $20? You know, if you buy like a Bailey or one of the other comparable manufacturers, high level planes were back then, you're not going to be just disappointed because they're really decent planes. They were good back then, a little bit of love, they'd be awesome now. Another question from Rick. Now that your trailer is working, getting the logs isn't an issue. Any chance of building a bandsaw for slabbing? Maybe. I've thought about it a lot, and the interesting thing about the bandsaw mills on the entry level area is it's probably obviously it's easier to buy one than it is to make one, and I think the cost of building versus buying one, they're not that far apart. Especially if you're going to use, the reason people use like trailer tires for the bandsaw wheels is because the tires and the wheels for the actual bandsaws are not cheap. I've looked into them, and if you want to get like a set of 19-inch decent wheels to build a bandsaw mill, you're looking at like $600 just for the wheels, and you know you got to add a motor, and then you got to build all the stuff. So, I maybe, if I feel ambitious, I might build my own, but maybe someday I'll buy one. Who knows? But I think a mill would be a really good addition to what I'm doing here. And someday when I can afford it, it definitely will show up. JP asks, what was the first large power tool you purchased? That was my table saw. I bought that, oh man, almost... Let me see if I can do the math. 7 years ago, November 5th, 2008. Yeah, I bought that thing. That's the first major tool purchase and first stationary tool that I ever bought. And it's still in my shop. Oh, good question, Jim. He asks, what size bandsaw would you get if you were starting over? I would get this one. This is a 14-inch bandsaw. I had a benchtop one, those little 10-inch dealy whackers that you can get for $150 at Home Depot. Terrible bandsaw. I didn't know it at the time. I thought maybe like I couldn't set my bandsaw up, my blades weren't that good, and all that stuff. But it was the bandsaw. It vibrated. It wouldn't cut straight. The guides are terrible. Had no power, and it was honestly probably a waste of money. That being said, this is obviously a lot more money, but if you're gonna buy a bandsaw, I wouldn't waste the money is one thing, but I wouldn't waste my time with a cheap one, because they will not do what you want them to do. They won't cut straight. They'll vibrate, and it won't be a good experience. Going from a benchtop saw to this thing is just a totally different world. It's crazy, because that's when you run that thing, you're like, oh, this is how it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to. You're not supposed to be fighting the saw the whole time and worrying about that kind of stuff. All right. That's a great question. Adam, he asks, are you worried about managing your workload once JR gets immobile? I noticed you're working while he naps or sits with you. That gets hard once they're attempting to kill themselves every 2 seconds. That's true. And honestly, during the day when I'm with him, I don't have much time to work anyway. During the day, I get some time to do emails and possibly edit a little bit, but he's only ever given me like a half hour, 10 minutes, a half hour, maybe if he falls asleep, to actually work on stuff. So my schedule now is actually really interesting. So I don't expect my time commitment right now to change, because I'm working nights right now. So GR will actually sleep in the morning. So that's when I sleep. And then I'm up all night working. So I get up with him around 11 or 12 every day. And then we do whatever we can do in the afternoon. My wife comes home around 7. We have dinner together. And then she and JR go to bed around 9:30, 10 o'clock. And then I work until about 4 in the morning. And then I go to bed and wake up with him around 8, feed him. And then he goes back to sleep. I go back to sleep. So we'll see how it goes. But I'm guessing it'll probably stay the same until he stops sleeping so much. Well, he doesn't sleep much at night, but in the morning when I'm trying to sleep. All right, so first hand plane to buy. I know a lot of people say buy a number 5 for your first hand plane. That's this guy right here. And honestly, I think it depends on what you're doing, what you expect to be doing with your hand planes. I don't use this. I haven't used this maybe ever for real, other than like, oh, I bought it, let me try and plane a board for fun. I don't use it. It doesn't get pulled out of the cabinet. You've never seen me use it in any of my videos because it doesn't get used. The plane that I use the most of anything is my number 4. I just kind of gravitate to the size. It's a good size for what I do, cleaning up edges, fine-tuning things, maybe a little surface prep or something. Just for the stuff that I do, this is the size that works best. It fits my hand really nicely. The size is nice. You know, it really depends on what you're going to do with it. So it's not really a good answer, but if you're more like me and you are more power tool focused and you just want a plane for finessing and little things around the bench, number 4 is a great plane to have for that. The number 5 I find is just too long for most things, but hopefully that helps, Tom. Let's see, where's the next question? Why do these keep jumping? Why are these in order anymore? Normally they're in order of like most +1s, but now they're all over the place. So I would start going through and clicking stuff, I guess. Okay. How did you account for wood movement in the drawers when you're making the secretary? It seems like the drawers have tight tolerances and would swell during different times of the year, and the drawers would bind. Okay, so the drawers have tight tolerances to the outsides. And in that direction, the drawer has not changed size. The drawers change size up and down. And the tolerances on that is the drawer sides are 1/16 of an inch shorter than the drawer fronts in most cases. Those are actually full overlay drawers. So it's a little bit different, but there is a gap between the top of the drawer side and the bottom of the kicker of the case. So there's plenty of room for that drawer to get taller and shorter as the seasons change, and that's where you're going to get your binding. The case gets deeper, doesn't get taller or shorter, so the grain is oriented so that I can have the tolerance tight in the direction that matters, which is the side to side. Because if you have a really loose tolerance from side to side, that's when you get racking. So if you have a wide drawer and you try and pull from one side and you try and pull it out and it's got a loose tolerance, you're going to jam the drawer in there because it's going to rack and get stuck. But if it was nice and tight, there's no way for it to rack, and both sides will come out evenly, even if you just pull on the one side. So if you saw my the changing table build, that small dresser, I went into pretty good detail on the drawer construction technique that I usually do in part 2. So you'll see at the end when I actually have the drawer assembled, the tolerance is so, I did a really good job on the tolerance. On a 3-foot wide drawer, I can pull one pull on one side and the whole thing slides open just perfectly. And that drawer is still operating just fine with the same amount of tolerance, I guess, or fluidity, for lack of a better word. But it's really, it all comes down to the orientation of the boards within the drawer more than anything. All right, question from Bill. How's it going, Bill? Any plans for increased Patreon activity in the future? Totally not a self-interested question. You can let me know what you want to see over there, Bill. When I set that up, I wasn't really sure what other things I can give to people other than, responding to their emails first. If there's some reward that you want to see over there or some exclusive thing you want to see there, that's cool. I'd be happy to consider that. When I set that up and when I kind of thought about that, it was more like, I'm already making content, and Patreon was a way for people who enjoy the content to support it financially. So I thought it was always kind of an interesting thing to me that it's like the content that I make isn't enough. I have to provide some additional value there, which I thought it makes sense, but I just thought that was a very interesting thing, I guess. So I'm more than happy to do other things over there. I know I do the Hangouts with the $20 group, but if you want to see something in one of the other categories, I'm open to suggestions. It was really when I set that up, I'm like, I have no idea what I'm going to put in this box here. It's like, put some rewards in. I'm like, I have no idea. So if you have any ideas, feel free to let me know. Tom asks, do I have the secretary in my home or did I sell it? It's in my home. It's in my living room. I look at it every day, and it's great to walk by that thing because I'm finally done with it. And I don't think I would sell that thing at this point. Too much of my life was into that, and it's not my best work. Have I ever tried wood burning? I have. When I was like 12, I got a wood burning kit. I tried that for a little bit. I did a couple of the whatever, it's like fill in the blanks, or not fill, like paint by number kind of thing with wood burning. I did a couple of those in the kit, and that was the last time I did wood burning. Jacob, how's it going? The trailer is awesome. Thank you. Do you enjoy that type of work? I really enjoyed that. I hope I do more things like that in the future. All that fabricating steel and welding and fitting, and it's really cool. And now that it's done and I can see it actually functioning, and it's totally different than something I could do with woodworking, because it's like really strong and it actually does something. It's mechanical. And in that sense, it's a totally different experience for me. Not that you can't do mechanical things with woodworking, but I went out and picked up a 2,200-pound log with that thing this weekend, which was awesome. So I really enjoyed it, and hopefully I have more things like that I can do in the future. I have some ideas for some shop stuff that I want to do now that I have a welder, like an outboard turning thing for my lathe, so I can turn some really big stuff. Projects. Dream shop, size, etc. Or is the shop you have now your dream shop? This is not my dream shop. This shop looks a lot bigger on camera. It is 20 by 22, and I've got it crammed in here quite well. There's really just enough room for me to walk around in here, and I'm not that big of a guy. The ceiling height is really low. It's like 7 feet to the the ceiling joist there. And overall, it's too small for me long term. I'd like something bigger. I like to build my own shop, something big, kind of like something that Elaine did. The woodpecker built his timber frame shop. I like to do something like that in my life. That'd be a lot of fun, a lot of work, but I think it'll be a lot of fun. So ideally, that's where I'd be with a dream shop. And it would probably be on a different property because this one doesn't really have enough space for me to build that big of a shop without basically using up the entire yard. And I had to get a variance from the city because I already have all the accessory structures I'm allowed to on this property. So we'll see here. Another question from Bill. What's something you wish you knew about making videos when you were first getting started? It's also not a self-interested question. I wish I knew how much fun it would be. When I started making videos, or let me rephrase it, how much fun and how rewarding it would be. If you don't know the backstory of me starting to make videos, I tried to start many times. Many times I tried to start doing videos. For years I tried to start, and I couldn't get over that initial, this isn't good enough to put out there on the internet. And yeah, it wasn't. It's terrible. It's laughable. And as I reviewed the footage, it just didn't feel good for me in my, like, I guess subconsciously, to put out this stuff that puts me in this light that I can't talk, I can't frame a sentence, I can't explain things well because I'm stuttering, I'm trying to get words out, it's not working. So eventually I just started doing a shop update because I'm like, okay, that should be easy enough for me to do. I can just talk about what I'm working on. That should flow naturally out of my mouth. And it did, and I got better at it over time. But if I knew back like years ago when I was trying to make videos, how rewarding it would be to just get out there and try it and practice and don't worry what people think initially, I think that would have been the greatest thing ever because I could have been doing this for years now. But it is what it is. I'm really happy that I started, and everything has been working out really great since. So I wish I would have gotten started sooner, but you know, whatever. I hope that helps, Bill. Who's that guy standing behind me? There's no one here. All right, use metric and meters. Okay, so when I first started woodworking, I was raised on the metric system. So I grew up, using the metric system in school, and I understood the metric system. But the thing about the metric system is it's easy. The math is easy. And I didn't want that. I wanted to be mentally challenged every single time I wanted to, add some numbers together because it's fractions. Fractions are inherently more difficult for most people, and they certainly were for me. But I wanted that challenge. I wanted to be able to think through the math problems in my mind or on paper or wherever when I was writing stuff down. So the fractions in the imperial system is what I really enjoy because it's actually challenging. And honestly, as far as people say like, oh, it's easy to make mistakes. Maybe when you first start it is, but it's becomes second nature once you use it enough and all that good stuff. So, I mean, I literally made the decision to not use metric and switch to imperial for that just because I wanted the challenge because I'm weird like that. Would I ever consider a weekend woodworking class in person? I would if I had the space. And if I knew all of the implications with having someone come into my shop to learn and possibly get injured. But that's a separate thing. There really isn't enough space in here for me to have maybe a hand cut dovetail class where it's all you're doing is working at the bench, but there is not enough room in here for two people to be walking around working on something. But it is something I've thought about and I may consider doing in the future at some point as I get more comfortable with teaching. The interesting thing about the teaching, it's the videos are a lot different than teaching in person, because with the videos you have the opportunity to make it perfect, make the presentation perfect for the first time. You know, just like right now, this is live. I can't stop and start over again and restart my answer, and you never see all the mistakes I made. Or if I give a bad answer, I can always come back and reshoot a new, better answer, you know. But that's a whole different side of things, I guess. All right, Andreas asks, hello, Matt. Hello, greetings from Sweden. I like your woodworking. How did you learn to woodwork? I got out in the shop, read some books, and just started doing it. Everything that I've learned so far has been self-taught. So really, just you can read the books, you can read the magazines. Those give you those really, really good fundamentals of what's going on, and some bigger picture stuff. But getting out in the shop, cutting the wood, and really working with it, for me, that was the best way to learn everything, because you have the whole experience right there. You're in your shop, you're making mistakes, you're learning from your mistakes, you're trying new things, you're practicing techniques. That's where it comes down to. This is not really something you can just read about and you'll know everything and how to do it. So much of this is all like feeling and just experience and getting good at things. So actual practice in the shop is by far the best way to get good at this. And that's what I did. If YouTube was shut down, what would you do for a full-time gig? Well, I would still try to pursue the online classes as a source of income. I would assume there'd be a new platform for online videos, so I'd probably move over there and start posting over there and see where that goes. But I guess if I had to go back to a normal day job, I'd probably go back to something I was doing before, which was systems design. So I've always got that, I guess. Dan asked about my relationship with Dema. Did I know him before YouTube? I did not. I met Dema last September. Well, I guess not last September. September of 2014. I was watching one of his videos. I think it was his shop tour at the time. And I noticed that his garbage can had one of the Minneapolis area codes on it. So I'm like, oh, this guy's from Minneapolis. I should reach out to him. And then something happened. That was in the morning. And then that afternoon, I got a message from Dema because he was watching one of my videos and saw that I was in Minneapolis. So we exchanged phone numbers, and he came over, we met, and now we're really good friends. It's pretty cool. The internet, you know, it's just nuts. And speaking of Dema, here he is. He says, I made it. Dovetails are the best thing to hand cut. Yes, they are. Dema is working on his hand cut dovetails this week. He is building a pen display case with small dovetailed drawers. How do I keep my shop warm during the winter? There was my stuff. There's my shop heater. It is a forced air garage heater thingamabobber. I think it's 40 or I always forget if it's 40 or 45,000 BTUs. It's natural gas. It's got, where's the pipe? I hate pointing at stuff. It's got the exhaust pipe so that the exhaust vents outside. That's what I do for the heat. It works really well. It brings the temperature up really quickly. And is it stuck down here now? Sorry, guys. Yeah, it works really well. I'm really glad I put that in. I put that in I bought the house in the spring, and I put that in the fall. Actually, 4 years ago exactly, because we put that up on Thanksgiving weekend because my dad was here and was helping me with that. A lot of great questions, everyone. Jim says liability. That's what the wife is for. That's what the wife is for. That's what one of the people that keep it from happening. That's in relation to the classes in person. What's up, Douglas? You made it. I thought you weren't going to make it because it was during the day. Douglas says, my question is, how did you get into woodworking and how did you become so talented? So I kind of answered this a little bit, but not entirely. So my story is in 2008, I went to IKEA with my wife and she wanted one of those little cloth bin holder things. And I looked at this thing. I'm like, this is going to fall apart, especially the way that she uses things. I love you. So I thought I could build something better. So I did. I built a little plywood, 2-shelf box thing. She still uses it to this day. And it kind of started from there. That really just like, this is awesome. I can make things. And it just went from there. I was in college at the time, didn't have a lot of money. So like, I remember when I was buying stuff, like I had to buy a router bit for a project and it was like $18. And at the time I was making like $7 an hour. So I'm like, after taxes, I had to work 3 hours to buy this router bit. And I only worked like 12 hours a week. So that was hard back then. Because woodworking obviously can be expensive and it is an expensive hobby, or profession or whatever you're doing with it. And then I graduated college. I got a full-time day job and I had, more money to spend on this thing then. And that's when it really started to take off because I bought some more tools. So I could do like rough lumber, and I started working with more hardwoods, and it just went from there. Just time out in the shop, absorb as much content as possible. I watched everything. I read everything I could. I used to subscribe to every single woodworking magazine. I watched everything online I could find. As the interesting thing is that as I progressed in my woodworking, the online video thing really started to become more mature and started to become an actual like pretty wide resource. So when I first started, there were only a few people making videos, like Mark and Matt really, and then Shannon started a little later after that. And like Rob Boas, he had videos as well at the time. And then like from there, like the last 3-4 years, it's been like an explosion of this online content. You can do so much. We can get so much information just from videos now. And to your point, how to become so talented, I don't know if I'm really that talented. I'm just out here in the shop practicing and trying new things and challenging myself. And I guess, I don't know. I do appreciate the compliment, Douglas. I really do. Thank you. Thank you for stopping in. In your videos, you usually work from plans, but your videos are usually complex projects. Do you ever work from plans, or do you ever just start cutting and see what happens? Okay, so as far as plans go, the videos that I did that actually had plans, secretary, I was building off of the plan from a book, so that was an actual plan. The bassinet I built off of a rough plan that I didn't sketch up just to get the dimensions right, because I had the angled sides and the curved rockers. For instance, the changing table, that was literally, I grabbed the boards. I'm like, how big do I make this thing? And I just started cutting. I had no plan at all. I made the plans for sale for that project afterwards. And that was interesting because I'm like, I don't remember any of these dimensions were, because I was just kind of putting it together as I went. And that's how I prefer to build, because to be honest, the way I like to build is to build with the wood. So if a board that I have that's going to be the main component of the piece is a certain width, then that's the width of the piece. I'm not going to cut that board down narrower. I'm not going to add a 2-inch strip to it to make it 2 inches wider. That board becomes the defining metric or meter of the whole piece. So that's usually how I build. And that's just how I prefer to do it, because it just works out better that way. Because then you're not trying to force the wood to do what you want. You're kind of just working with the wood and allowing the wood to do what it's best at, which is just being itself, I guess. Do I look up to the Woodwhisperer? Absolutely. Mark is an amazing guy. And when I first started, he was the only one making like really good instructional videos like he does. So he is responsible for most of my basis of knowledge. So absolutely. Definitely someone I look up to. What age will you start bringing JR into the shop to start learning the craft? I hope as soon as he can actually like, I don't know what the developmental terms for it are, but actually like understand what he's doing. I'm not sure what age that is or when he kind of gets to that point where he's like, if I do this, this happens and my things all go together. But I think just that's more from the teaching standpoint. I think that for sure, as soon as he can walk and he can actually like kind of be in his own, I think I'll definitely have him out here just at least watching, helping out with what he can, handing me a tool or whatever, at least to get him involved. That's when I was a kid, that was all I did was follow my dad around and bring him tools. So I'm sure I'll do exactly the same thing with him. How long does it have to be cold before cutting down a tree so the bark will stay on the tree better? You can it's pretty much a guarantee that as soon as the tree goes dormant, if it's a deciduous tree, as soon as it loses its leaves, it's dormant, and the bark should stay on because the what's it called? The thing that actually generates the bark isn't actually doing anything anymore between the bark and the sapwood. The cambium, I think is what it's called. It's dormant, so the bark will stay on in that case. When you procure giant logs, do you usually just slab them or do you save them to run them through the sawmill to get defined cant and cut quarter saw lumber as a Wood-Mizer in the future? I usually just slab them up because I want those really wide boards. And being on the chainsaw mill is a lot of fun. There's my baby and my wife. That means it's time. Because I want those wide boards for future projects and stuff like that. And I could mill that way, or I could quarter them and quarter saw them. I don't really care for quarter saw lumber in my work, only because a plain sawn log will yield quarter sawn wood, and I don't need a whole log full of quarter saw material. I usually have enough for like rails for doors or something within a project. So you get a little bit of everything from plain sawn. You get flat sawn, you get rift sawn, and you get quarter sawn material from there. And is Wood-Mizer my feature? Michael, please call him and tell him to send me one. I'm going to do these 2 questions here, and then we'll call it time here. What is your degree in, and does it help with woodworking? Or did you get into woodworking and get away from it? My degree is in finance with a minor in information systems. Does it help with my woodworking?
And photography.
And I also have a minor in photography. Does it help with your woodworking? No, not really. Maybe problem solving. But that was already an underlying skill that I had before I went through that whole process of schooling. And I got into woodworking just because I really enjoyed it. It was fun to actually get out there and make something tangible, because my day job was making things that were intangible, designing software systems that are not tangible, that I'll never be able to feel or interact with other than on a UI on a computer screen. Last question. Have you had any serious injuries from woodworking? Nothing super serious. I did crush my hand once with a planer. Lindsay did not like that one, but I didn't break my hand. I thought I broke my hand. Didn't break it. It's all good. I pinched my hand between this table I'm sitting at and the planer as I was feeding a board, because I was lifting the board up at the end. My hand got caught between the table and the end of the board, and the planer wasn't done with the board yet, so I just kept feeding. And the only thing that saved my hand was the fact that the planer is not bolted to the floor. Because if it would, my hand would not be there anymore, because those don't stop pushing for nothing. Oh, question for you, Lindsay.
What?
Question for you from Bill. Yes.
And my name's spelled right.
Thank you, Bill. Bill knows you. Yes. Is your relationship with Matt better now that he's home all the time, or was it better when he had a full-time job?
Well, he's always been home all the time, actually, because his full-time job before was working at home. So I would say it hasn't really changed much. It's always been the fact that he works at home. He just now, instead of working on a computer, doing whatever he did for that software company, now at least I know a little bit because I can see what he's been doing. But it is sometimes as a stay-at-home, he's a stay-at-home dad and I'm a working mom. Hey, Pancake. That is sometimes frustrating because, I leave in the morning and I'll text him around like noon. What are you guys doing? Oh, we're just hanging out in bed. And I'm like, that's cool, because I've been to a bazillion meetings. I've sent a bunch of emails. I've been working for hours. So sometimes it's hard to realize just that we just have different schedules, and I get jealous because he gets to play with the baby all day and I don't, but that's okay.
It's okay. He keeps you up all night.
It's true though. Then I get to play with him all night And I, for me, I have the benefit of knowing that he's with his dad all day. And that's something that I think is invaluable, that I over worry. I think it comes with my profession. And so I don't have to worry as much because he's with his dad. I don't think I could handle him being at daycare. I think the daycare people would fire me because I would call them constantly. So that's for sure. All right, dude.
Oh, they are. He's drooling.
I know. He's really drooling a lot.
He's got teeth coming already. He's teething. So that is it, everyone. Thank you for stopping by, asking questions. I really appreciate it. This is a lot of fun. Looking forward to the next one, which will be in January sometime. Should be crazy.
By my birthday.
By your birthday, yep. Good pancake. So thanks as always, everyone, for watching. Thanks for being here. Thanks for answering the questions. If you're watching the replay, thanks for watching the replay. If you have any questions about anything, you can leave those in the comments on the replay there as well. Thank you again. That is the overall theme of this talk right now, is thank yous. Everyone, you have a great day.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to everyone in the States. Happy
Black Friday.
Happy Black Friday. Happy Black Friday.
I'm excited. It's going to be fun.
I hope everyone has a great week and all that fun stuff.
Oh, this happy birthday to my sister. That's
happy
sweet.
Birthday to Lauren from Douglas.
That's nice.
Thank you, Tommy. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Okay, goodbye, Matt.
Goodbye and happy woodworking.